Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. Very excited for today's conversation. We have three panelists that are experts in this as well, and they're blessing us with their time and their knowledge. Okay, so thank you all so much for taking the time to be here with us today. We're super excited. This is going to be really, really good. Today, what we're speaking to is 5 new buying trends and how it'll affect your 2022 planning. Perfect timing to have this conversation as we're kind of rolling into the second month of Q4 here. Everything's starting to go for January 2022. So really excited for all of you guys to be here. It's going to be great. Fantastic. So we have today Craig Rosenberg, Ryan O'Hara, and Jenny Vance joining us today. Thank you all for taking the hour out of your day. I know you're all super busy. We're super excited to have you and hear from what you have to say. Thank you, guys.
Here come the hot takes, guys. It's gonna get really hot in here. We're gonna be sweating at the end of this thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna be sweating. You guys are like, who's this gross dude on camera?
Sounds like you're already sweating with that fire in the back, right?
You guys don't even know. And I'm drinking hot coffee. So I mean, this is risky. Craig was asking who the statue is in the background. It's Beethoven, actually. So I got it when I bought a piano many years ago. Some guy gave it to me, and I was like, I gotta just put this in the background. I also have an awesome say anything boombox, pinata for hitting a revenue goal. Do you want us to do intros or anything, Mikey, about ourselves?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to loop into that right now. So yeah, perfect. Let's dive into that.
Let's fly in first. I guess I'll just go. So VP of Marketing Growth at LeadIQ. You guys probably see my content online a lot. I do a lot of stuff about sales and helping people with prospecting. Top of the funnel stuff. I've worked at many startups before. LeadIQ most recently, we just raised a Series B at 30 million, which is kind of cool. Couple years ago, I was the first BDR at a company back about a decade ago called Dine, and moved into various roles in the revenue operations of marketing, sales enablement, sales engagement. We got acquired by Oracle for $600 million in 2016. It was kind of cool. So I can talk to you guys about marketing, sales, all that stuff. I'm double gunning over here. I'm going to Jenny. Let's popcorn it over to Jenny.
All right. So Jenny Vance, Chief Revenue Officer at Curvo Labs. We are a company that's focused in healthcare tech. So we provide software to hospitals and specifically hospital supply chains. A little bit more of an enterprise SaaS sale. So in this current environment, but have had a variety of different roles and worn many hats with other technology companies. Served as the EVP in sales for Perk during the run from 900K to 6.5 million. So really working on those scale elements. I love taking businesses from founder-led to scalable businesses, which is around the time that I plugged in at Curvo, which I was patient 0 on the revenue team, and now we're up over 10. So some good run right there. Outside of that, I founded a company back when I was 26 called Leadjen that I exited in 2017, and I also have had many rounds consulting with businesses. But I'd say the claim to fame on the sales and marketing side is that during that time during Leadjen, I worked with about 350 B2B technology companies on their go-to-market, and it was a lot of fun. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Well, thanks for taking the time and joining us today. Craig, I'll shoot it over to you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Craig Rosenberg, and I am a vice president analyst at Gartner. I came to Gartner. I was formerly the co-founder of a company called Topo. We were a research advisory firm focused on the world's fastest growing companies. And now, I work here at Gartner. So I went from looking at one part of the market with Topo, and now at Gartner, the whole world, and looking at sales and MarTech and business processes and go-to-market. And looking forward to being here today and having a conversation with everyone here on the call. And I'm not a rebel.
You guys didn't see before he joined the Zoom, he skidded in on a motorcycle and punched a jukebox, and music started. We had to stop it. It was actually really disruptive to try to rep webinar, but that happened.
Totally. Well, awesome, you three. Thank you all again for taking the time to join us today. We're super happy to have you guys and learn from you with all your your accomplishments throughout your career. So thank you all again for being here, as well as the audience. Now we got it all out of the way. Everyone knows who's who. If you haven't met anybody here today, you now do know them, or you know them even better. And welcome to anybody this is your first webinar. So super excited to have everybody here. We're ready to get a rock and roll in. So, okay, we're going to jump into our first hot take here. Okay, so hot take number one, let's just say the Great Resignation, is affecting all aspects of sales, as very few expect to return to pre-pandemic strategies, right? So over the last year, 2 years, so much has happened. A lot of people moved from the in-office to the remote working world, and now that we've kind of set that precedent over the last 2 years, a lot of companies are moving towards that. What's the new norm, essentially, right? So I would love to start off with you, Ryan. What are your thoughts on that?
So 2 weeks ago, I traveled for the first time since post-COVID to a little executive retreat that the AISP puts on, and we were talking about all these different sales leaders. Everybody's having problems with hiring. Everybody's having trouble with keeping talent. There's so many layers and layers to this complex problem of building a sales team. And the problem is, if you're a company that's growing and you can't increase your rep or headcount, you can't increase revenue. And as we're doing stuff, planning for 2022, you have to be mindful. How am I going to keep people to want to keep working here? What are things I need to think about besides perks, compensation? There's other stuff that makes someone want to stay somewhere. And if your organization isn't really ready to do that whole digital rethinking of like, hey, how do I interact in cadence with my employees? How do I make them feel like they're part of a team? How do I make it so they don't want to hit their head against the wall whenever they want to reach out to a prospect because it takes a million steps? All these things are in the back of their heads while they're looking for other jobs and stuff. And I think it comes down to one big key of why people are quitting and leaving jobs. That's boredom. That's the biggest thing. Why do you look for work? You're bored. Or you're bored with the money you make. Or you don't make enough money to enjoy and not be bored. Boredom is a huge issue here, and I think it's something that we can actually fix in the sales space. And that's kind of my hot take on this thing, on how to tackle the Great Resignation with your planning. How do you make it so the sales team and the sales and marketing teams that you have are interested in what you're doing, and they're interested in what they're doing day to day, and they're not getting bored? I think that's kind of interesting and important. What do you guys think?
Hey, Ryan, just to touch on that, do you think that's also a big reason for it, is now that we're in this remote world and not having, your look over to your left or your right and talk directly to your colleague and have that banter throughout the day? Do you think because we're in this remote world and we can only interact with peers from our computer, that's having a big impact on the aspect of what you mentioned, boredom, and just kind of like productivity and motivation?
Yeah, I think that so if you work in sales and you're a seller, there's a lot of people that literally like where they work because they get to interact with cool people all the time. And you're losing that not being in the office every day. Like, I see all these people on LinkedIn that are like, hey, when you make a meeting, make sure you have an agenda and make sure everything's laid out. But we're missing those conversations. The other thing that we're missing is company-wide events. So one of the things we talked about at that conference a couple weeks ago is these executives that work at these companies used to know everyone's spouse and children, and they would see them at Christmas parties and holiday parties and company outings and stuff, and you don't have those interactions anymore. So when that person's like, oh man, I was talking to Craig today and he said something that drove me nuts, that person can't be like, hey, Craig's a nice guy, what are you talking about, what happened? And they can't even do that and defend your coworkers because you're not having that cross mingling. So there's got to be some way to try and embed and get these people to be engaged. The other aspect is, if I'm going to pick a company to work for and there's all these jobs out there right now, there's a shortage on talent, you better make sure that you're making it so that the rep doesn't have to do too much work on their end in their day-to-day to just focus on selling. Because that's what they want to do. They want to interact and they crave talking to people and interacting with people. So you want to enable them to do that. And if you have too many barriers to do that, or too many rules or protocol, or maybe you give them too few named accounts, or it takes too many steps to reach out to an actual prospect or something, that's actually going to impact someone's psychology and how engaged they are when they're actually doing their work.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Totally. Love that. Cool. Jenny, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I've got all kinds. So, I I think it's interesting to hear the take on boredom. I really think it comes down to treatment. The simple fact is, it's one of the best times to hunt for a job and to level up on opportunity than there's been in a very long time. So it's prudent. It's a prudent thing for reps to do, is to consider their options. And what I literally was on the phone this morning on the way to a meeting and hearing about a company that had a rep who hit 98.25% to quota, that they are going to let walk out the door. And I just, as a CRO, think the runway to get a new person in and ramped to that level of performance and commitment to performance, to let that person walk out the door is asinine. It's freaking crazy. And that's what I don't understand. When I see that, it definitely pisses me off. I'd say the thing that I would recommend, definitely opportunities. We definitely want to keep our team fed. We don't want them doing tons of tactics. They can get exhausted by that. I'd also say a lot of top funnel measurement is another alienating thing to most reps, versus the bottom funnel being the area of importance and top funnel being the support to that, where we don't beat someone up and browbeat them over top funnel unless the bottom funnel isn't coming together the way that it needs to be. But I guess looking at the talent and looking at the proof points of what someone is accomplishing, if the ACV is off but they're hitting logos, if they are maybe they did a couple really big deals, if they're showing signs in their pipeline for qualified pipeline build and the strategy behind that and the work that it takes, then have that hard conversation with the board, with leadership, about how do we extend the runway for our reps and show them that we appreciate the commitment when there are things that are unpredictable in the market. I mean, we sell into healthcare. Talk about an industry that's been rocked over the last 2 years. And budgets are upside down, business models are changing, and we're still continuing to execute and sell, but also find our footing and adjusting and trying to kind of pivot with the market as we all learn and grow. So I really think it comes down to caring for the reps and thinking about that reps. We want reps that are motivated by money. So let's talk some dollars and cents, and let's make sure that they have an extended runway. And the last thing I'll share is looking at a plan that is fair but gives upside. If I talk to reps in the interview process, one of the number one reasons they're leaving is because they feel capped. So take away caps. If someone is killing it for you, let them make a lot of money and stop trying to nickel and dime the sales team, which is the source of revenue and growth, and give and talk about ways. So if anyone is interested in the comp model that we've put in place, I'm happy to talk offline in more detail, but we have a really exciting model that gives annuity potential, where someone that stays in our environment and continues to sell and achieve quota has the opportunity to earn additional annuity and continue to feel upside year after year. So if anyone's interested in that kind of detail, I'm happy to share more about that offline.
Interesting. I would be interested in that, to see how that goes. I haven't really heard of a comp structure like that before. So that's really cool. Thanks,
So
Jenny.
we can do a webinar on that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We can do a whole thing.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, but Jenny, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want everyone to know that I didn't quite realize that Jenny was Leadjen. I know Leadjen. Now you're a civilian. It's so crazy.
I'm a civilian, yes.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't understand. So the rep in the, your first example was at 98 something %, and they let him go for what? Like, what happened? Did he or she get paid more, or did they? Like, when you said they let them walk out the door, for what was the situation?
Well, she's getting offers because she's a strong performer. So it is a she, and they are nickel and diming income. And then one of the things I see a lot with sales leaders when I talk with other salespeople or mentor is this tactic of telling someone what they're not good at as a definitive statement, as a means to hold them in place. And if someone's doing that, I would highly recommend a rep leave. Someone is saying you are this and you will always be this, or they're trying to cut you down as a means to hold you in place and make you feel less than, it's not going to work in this competitive market because they already have people knocking on the door saying, you're great, I want you. So that's going to be incredibly detrimental behavior in this environment. And that's really the dynamic that's happening, is that they're holding out on some payments. They're playing games on the cash. It's like, don't play games that way with reps, and try to be fair. And if you have to make exceptions, and that's going to mean that you retain a talent, instead of that talent walking out the door and that takes me 9 months to backfill that, and that affects my ability to hit my year in 2022, do what you need to do.
Yeah. I'll add something else to this too that I was thinking about. With the Great Resignation, the other thing to think about is giving your reps opportunities outside of their job description. Letting them do things that might not normally be something they would do. For example, account executives, right? The account executives are maybe the best talkers on your team, right? They prospect, they cold call, they talk to people, they work deals, they deal in negotiations, they mobilize deals, they talk to stakeholders. They hear customer stories all the time. They have insight. They learn things from being on these calls and working with these deals and stuff. How many of you here have asked your account executives to be on a webinar or start a podcast or do a roundtable with some customers or do something with the marketing team to make content and brand build? I did a research study with Tendown a couple years ago, and we got some data that said that the average full-time prospector and rep is around 25 years old. These are people that literally, like, they brag about buying houses. They take pictures of their houses when they buy them online. They post wedding pictures. They announce everything on the internet because there's this fear of missing out where they want to show people what they're doing with their life and stuff. And you have an opportunity as a company to build relationships and build their brand with them and create more incentives so they feel like, oh man, I kind of want to stay here because they're investing in me as a brand. They're investing in me as an extension of reaching out and being in front of customers. I never understood this, like why companies are so hesitant to have an account executive close $1 million deals, but they're reluctant to have them go talk to thousands of customers.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
We had that actually happen by default at an event where we sent a rep down and they had a gap on their panel, and the rep filled the gap and it went incredibly well. And he did a fantastic job. So it's a really great idea. Great point.
Yeah.
Craig, you got anything? You got any cool gems or any secrets?
No. Yes, I do. Of course I do. That's what mute buttons are for, to keep me out. No, I mean, look, when you think about the Great Resignation is not just a sales theme, right? This is a macroeconomic, like this is happening in business, and like if you just take the predominant Great Resignation example is people leaving service and restaurants and food service and these service industries for other jobs, right? With all due respect, of course they would, right? There's a better place to go. And so I think the shift that you guys are bringing up is really important as we think about this. Look, I have gray hair, so I'm not in that 25-year-old range. I could have a son or daughter that's 25, but my bosses said, well, we're going to pay you a lot of money and go out and go do it. Here's a bag and I'm going to treat you like dirt. You'll get your check, but just, there was not a ton of what you guys are talking about, which is really, for me, quite simple, which is what's the value prop of being in sales at your organization? Mm-hmm. And I think it's been predominantly left to the recruiters, and there are good ones that do that, but that's not today. Today you guys are bringing up all of these things. Like what is it about being a rep here that's so magical? And it may not be like, it doesn't have to be. And so I go back to those folks that were sort of my old bosses. Everyone's so soft. It's not the point. It doesn't have to. That the point is even if, no matter what you do, can we take a step back and decide, well, gosh, like, what is it about being a sales rep here, and how do I improve? How do I, just like you would do a product, how do I think about how I would improve that product so that people would want to come here and want to retain them? And so easy for us to say, because I think Jenny brought up good points, which is like, well, you do have to go oftentimes to resistant leadership who are like, well, they make more than me, like tell them to go do it. And actually, we can't live like that anymore. We have to say, what's it like to be a rep? And how do I, there are things everyone on this call mentioned that are things that you lose people for. One is obviously pay. Now, look, the young folks, they're going to go and they're going to make bad decisions based on pay. And, I like the ones that have learned after making that bad decision based on presumed pay. Because that, as you guys know, is, it's a never ending thing. I mean, I could go and say, hey, I'll give you $5 more. And so, yes, we want to make sure we're in line with what people make. But there are other ways to show them you will make them lots of money. You guys brought this up. It's like, look, I'll just give you an example. This is, don't tell you. You only have to prospect 10% of the time. We feed you opportunities. You have literally only 10% of your day will be entering things into the systems, right? We have a full complement of every possible productivity optimization that we make. If you have an issue and you come to us and you want to do, we have a career pathing program. All of these things that frankly we talk about all the time need to be put together into a value prop the same way you would go sell a product. And why wouldn't you? It's actually really fun. I had this. I got to tell you, she's literally to date. Well, now that I know Jenny's a civilian, Jenny's one of them. But this woman was my favorite CRO because she went through this process of trying to figure out, well, what's it like for my reps? And she came back after a month and a half and said, oh my God, like her sales kickoff was entitled The Year of the Rep. And she said, every 2 weeks, I'm going to fix something in your life. And let me show you what it is. And she went down the line saying, first of all, you guys are spending way too much preparing for the forecast. We're going to go from 4 hours of preparation to 0, right? We are going to go from you having to prospect to automated, outreach, whatever that might be. Just went down the line. I mean, I'm not kidding. She was probably lifted out on her shoulders on the way out. That's how we want to think. What would your year of the rep look like? Then model it. Now we got to figure out, now you produce it like you would a product. Where's the deck? How do you talk about it? What are those key things? How do we hold people accountable to it? Our job is to make people lots of money and to have a fulfilling job and to help them advance in their careers. Those are simple goals. We want to be able to point to that. I will mention one other thing. The thing I'm most worried about in the new world has been the SDRs. They should be in the office. Like being an SDR is a terrible job. I don't want my 20-something kid in their apartment doing that job. Part of the reason they do that is, one, they often figure out what's happening on Thursday night in the SDR pit. They meet some of their best friends for the rest of their career in life. They meet their significant other. I mean, this is like something that we will, as we think about, again, I'm thinking about what is it to be an SDR? What is it to be a sales rep? We're going to have to think through all of these things and keep it real on what it means to be happy in that position and what it does, and then sell it back to them, sell it to ourselves, and make it a real thing. So anyway, that's how I've been thinking about this. And we've just seen too many really good examples now. That's the thing. We keep talking about all these bad ones. There's too many good ones. Like you guys just gave 2 good ones. And we're seeing it more and more where people are really thinking about that and what it means to be a rep in their company. And I think that's just great for the world. It's great for the company.
I think it comes down to knowing the reps and what they're trying to accomplish, because having come from Perk, where we worked with a lot of young sales talent, early career sales talent, the needs were very different. Maybe sales was still a bad word when they were considering their career options, and we're bringing in and building a robust and scalable SDR team. Now at Curvo, with an enterprise team, I've got really seasoned people. Their trajectory is different. Some of them want that career that's going to help set them up for retirement, and that's their ambition. So it's really important to know that, to your point, Craig, and be able to support those steps and show tangible movement, and that you're on the same team for them to accomplish those things, and that you're going to be a partner in representing that. I will say on the SDR side, I question whether we will accomplish the scale in that role that we need to accomplish by having the mindset that we've got to get everyone back in person. I think that it has to be about the enablement and how we build teams in a virtual environment. I do think forcing people out of virtual is one reason why people are jumping ship and resigning and going to the next thing. So finding that balance of how do we make that work? And I also believe that's where we're going to go find talent in some of these communities that aren't centralized. And when we activate talent from those communities and lift them up, we're not only going to lift up the economy in that way, but we're going to really see a pretty important change in how we can scale and what type of talent we can acquire. And it's going to help with that supply-demand gap. But that's going to take a better enablement of the virtual environment. And how do we team build within the virtual environment in an effective way?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to get tactical, to wrap up, if we're going to get tactical, the other thing to keep in mind is the Great Resignation stinks because we're losing employees. But it's also an opportunity because those people have to leave and go somewhere else. Hospitality, go hire people that work in hospitality that don't want to work there anymore. Food service industry, maybe someone was a waiter or waitress and did excellent customer service and customer support. Those skills translate really well to sales. Veterans are another great group you can go look into to get someone. They're usually a lot more mature. They've been through a lot of things. They understand the maturity it takes to be responsible for things, like a pipeline and a quota and a number. You can tap into the best part about COVID, unfortunately, and the world shutting down, is that your workforce is anywhere now. Your companies are most likely enabled to go remote. Don't go hiring out of San Francisco, Austin, New York, Seattle, and all those places. Go to places like Indianapolis, New Hampshire, where I am. I said that because you're from Indy, right, Jenny? We go tap into other markets that have less jobs, and you'll stand out a lot more, and you'll probably be paying a lot more than companies that are based in those areas. And the talent's there. There are people that are there eager to do this. So take advantage of some of those situations and attack it.
Wicked. Yeah, this is all fantastic. And Craig, going back to your comment about, what is the value for me to sell at your organization? I think that's such a key question to ask your reps, right? Because I feel like a lot of these reps and a lot of these account executives, SDRs, they might not actually get that from leadership, right? At least in my past, I haven't, right? And so it's like I come in here, try to hit my number, and that's it. So there's not a whole lot of other incentive to really show that you're super valuable to this organization, and this is why you should be selling for us, because we have X, this path for you, this comp structure, however it works, to make them feel value and want to stay. So I really like that point there. Awesome. Okay, so we got to move on to our next hot take here. Our second take: the future of buying is digital and rep-free. So we did some stats and we found out that 54% of millennials prefer a rep-free experience, and overall 43% prefer a rep-free experience. Okay, Craig, I would really like to get your initial thoughts on that point.
Well, one thing I was trying to dig up the second part of the data, which is that it often leads to bad decisions. So one thing we look at is purchasing regret, at Gartner. And so, yes, people prefer to, a virtual experience, but oftentimes, particularly in more of an e-commerce scenario, which is a little different than what us tech folks will talk about, there's a higher level of buying regret. I without having the number in front of me, you just have to trust me on that one. Yeah. And so the other thing too is if you ask, so I think we would believe it. I think if we ask people that, what are they going to say? I mean, it's the same thing. I walk into a store at the mall and they say, "Hey, can I help you?" And my first reaction is no. I really could have the help, Like, I'm just looking is what I say. And then I always go back and go, well, actually, do you have the gray, whatever hoodie or whatever I'm here to buy? And like, what else do you got? Our first reaction is to not. And it's part of the value that we see oftentimes that salespeople don't bring to us. That's part of that answer. But also, look, young folks are growing up in pure digital experiences, and I think we'll need to account for it. That data that I presented, that comes from Gartner, that it comes across multiple types of buyers and multiple types of industries. We have a tech scenario now where product-led growth is basically, I would say, if you're going to start a company today and it's not product-led, you have a lot of explaining to do. Right. So we're certainly starting in the software and SaaS and consumption business to start to think about product led. And then in the non-tech software, et cetera, the level of sort of digital commerce and, others digital buying routes are becoming, bigger, better, stronger, more appropriate. But as we think about it as so that's, there's new routes to market. And we all need them. In my opinion, we just don't know. Like, we need to have this idea of your revenue machine has to have multiple routes to market that support the different types of buyers and how they want to buy. They're going to go in and out from, whichever, like we see people in product led start down the product led path and then end up with reps, or, with reps go away, come down the product led path. That's on the software side. And certainly, same thing happens in a e-commerce scenario. So for us, we have to start to build for this new scenario, in my opinion. And why wouldn't we? There's so much scale and product led, at least as the beginning of a relationship with a customer that prefers to go do it that way. So I don't know. I have a lot of feelings on it. As you can tell, I'm not totally sure. I think one thing is people are going to answer it based on their instinct. But if you do look at that data, you see that folks from my generation, it's a very small percentage that prefer buying with digitally. They prefer adults. But yeah, the new folks coming in, we're going to start, you see the trend of them and how they want to buy. And we see the trend of the vendors and how we're setting ourselves up with multiple routes to market. And so this is coming. I think the things that I've been thinking that I think are really cool is, can we use automation to replicate experiences that we deliver as reps? You see that with demo experience, you see solutions. You see that with even just what we've seen already from messaging, screen pop, chat, et cetera, via digital experiences. There's a lot of really cool things that we're starting to think about and do and automate for that allow us to, as reps and as people, to incorporate ourselves in those digital experiences. And I think that's going to lead to a whole new amount of fun conversations that we can have going forward on new tech and new digital experiences that we deliver to buyers. But anyway, I just said a whole bunch of stuff. I'll leave it to the rest of the team. It's a very interesting stat. The stat keeps going up, just so you guys know, as we take that data in, that's continuing to grow. I think we would all agree it will continue to grow. You don't even need to be an expert on that to know that people are going to continue to prefer to buy digitally. And yeah, so that's how I'd start this conversation, and looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say.
Yeah.
You want to go next, Jenny?
Yeah, I'll be fairly short. I think that it applies more in the lower ACV opportunities in B2B SaaS than perhaps it does in enterprise scenarios. That said, most things that apply there eventually grow to being applicable in enterprise SaaS. It just takes a while. So it's a few more years away. I think it's about the value that's being delivered by the reps, and it's more about the consultative elements. So the things that are very repeatable, that are a little more rote, are going to get automated, and that's the way of the world. That's how we scale. That's how we grow, and so those nuances, to your point, Craig, I don't think it moves fully away, but people rely on reps for consultative insight going forward. And we have to find the right places to plug that in a digital buying process, so that we can affect and really still create customer advocates as part of the process. But that's really my contribution and thought on it.
Mm-hmm. And just a thought from my end too. I totally agree, Craig, with the product led purchasing aspect. However, I feel like the way of selling has changed quite a bit, like quite drastically over the years in terms of, hey, I'm trying to sell you my product. It's the best product, right? Rather than kind of coming into being, hey, I'm actually here to help you and show you what we can do for you and what we can't do for you. At least that's kind of how I've seen a lot of the sales approach start to happen. So I know we just got a comment from Mike in our crowd. He said, the reps are never going to go anywhere as we start turning towards that more consulting aspect rather than a seller. So I find it interesting that it is continuing to go up, a digital rep-free experience and buying digitally rather than leaning on someone that you have already built a relationship with and are actually there to help you. So that's just kind of my 2 cents. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, this take's going to get really hot here, but I'm going to do it in honor of the hot take. I'm switching to the red light here. So let's get into the red light mode here. Here we go. Oh, it's not working. It's going pink. I like pink anyway. That's fine. Here's the deal. A lot has changed in buying in the past couple of years, especially with the customer support and customer service motion, customer success motion becoming really popular with different organizations. So back in the day, I'd work in sales and I would reach out to an account and I would try and find the person with authority, and they'd sign a contract, and you'd put them through onboarding and hope for the best and hope that they understand stuff. The problem is today, especially with subscription models basically being the status quo and the general model that people are following when they're doing their business model and stuff, having your boss say you have to use something because they say so is maybe the worst reason to use a product or service. With that being said, when you're actually working deals, if you want to do a true product-led growth game plan in 2022, you need to focus on influence. That means instead of doing lead scoring, you need to do account scoring. Account scoring is much more important to the big picture. Sure, you can have lead scores and stuff. Most people do lead scoring at a company. They score someone based on the activities that they do and the actions and static things that don't change, like company size, revenue, all that stuff. If you're doing product-led growth, you need to have account scoring based on how many people from that company sign up. Did you create a virality event that made them take one user and turn it into 2 users inside your product? And then as part of the keys, instead of having just marketing touches with email and push notifications and random stuff like that, you need to make sales part of that process. Sales should be some of the steps there. And you shift your sales reps from being in this mindset of, I'm going to chase these leads that came in and try and turn them into an opportunity, into chasing them and turning them into product experts that inspire someone with different ideas of how they could use things and how they can do things on that end. So like an example could be, let's say I get an account in from, let's say I get Jenny's company to come into my funnel and they do a trial of LeadIQ or something here. My main initial goal with product-led growth isn't to get the decision maker in the funnel. It's to get as many people that work with Jenny in the funnel so that they can influence and convince Jenny to get in, and building things that allow them to mobilize and get Jenny involved inside the account eventually. So that's how we have to think about it with product-led growth. Chasing is not the way that you want to set up your sales team. You want to set your sales team up to be proactive and inspiring them with different ways to use the products and stuff inside and make them part of the game plan for onboarding. No one wants to go into a product and hit next, shaded dark area, and then one area that's highlighted next, and see a bunch of buttons. You want to tell a full story there. I actually got this idea from talking to Chris Ortolano about this a long time ago, but you need to tell a story with your onboarding, and you need to tell a story and create features that make it more incentivized to pull in more influencers inside that account. So we do recommend, you're asking about if we have a model for account scoring. On our end, we have 2 attributes. We do modeling based on static stuff that doesn't change, and then like such as head count, number of reps we think we have.
Profile elements.
Yeah. And then random actions of what they actually do inside the product. We have a data warehouse that collects that information and then increases the score based on things that they're doing inside of LeadIQ.
So those are for customers, not necessarily for top funnel on account scoring.
if you're doing product-led growth, you need to have something that people can do inside your product. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I'm trying to think about how that applies outside of it. But I think it's an interesting concept in the context of enterprise sales and account-based marketing is to look more at an account-based score. So it's interesting.
You should, as a team, if you're trying to synchronize your 2022 plan for product-led growth, it's not just sales chasing leads. It's not just marketing, filling the funnel up with people and users. You need to go to product and make things that make it easier for one user to turn into two users. You need to go to engineering and make backend so that you're collecting the right data to do the proper scoring. You need SDRs to come in. And here's what the SDRs can do too. If they have named accounts that they're going after and they're doing going after those named accounts, they have different things that they can give to an individual person at the bottom of the rung that's a user. They can actually give them things. Hey, I made this account for you. You can log in. You can do these things with it. I can give you this for a week. Normally, we would only get it for a day, or maybe you'd only get it for a week. I'm going to give you 3 weeks of this that you can test out and mess around with it. By the way, do you know anyone else that could add to this? And that incentive when you're doing the outreach isn't to get a meeting anymore. It's to get someone to go in and try and use the product. And then you build triggers that will allow you to react to what happens based on those things. And that's kind of how you do that product-led growth motion. I'd mentioned this, we were going to show it, but we don't really need to. I did a poll on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago where I asked people about this, and I had over 500 votes. 60% of people just want to get into the product on the poll I did. Mine was targeting sales reps, so like I was just asking the sales space. But those are people that should be more eager to talk to sales reps, actually. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is an important point, which is, is that when we talk about the rep and the buying experience and like what that's going to look like in the future, I don't know. Someone wrote reps aren't going away. If anybody thinks I'm saying reps are going away, then that's not what I'm saying. I'd be out of a job. What am I going to be, the digital buying analyst at Gartner? I'm like way into salespeople and what we're going to do here. We have to change the experiences we deliver. One of those things is like, if you think about our levels of expertise, right? We have to, what you described, Ryan, is really important, which is we actually have to know the product. Sorry, I mean, look, I can't tell you what I sold my first job. I made a ton of money. It was awesome. I looked really cool. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, in a product-led experience, the people do want to get, you know, met. There's a high number of people that buy based on the user experience and UI, and they want to get in there and they want to go see it. But what can we do from there? You know, can we help? You know, we want that part of that product-led experience is a sales rep that will get them to maximize the use of the product. That's how we win. So you've got two levels of expertise we need to build. One is this is not different. We need the sort of business acumen, business expertise, because we do need to help people. If that's not going to go away, right? Which is taking people's problems and tying solutions to them. But the second is the product expertise. We can't hand that off. Right, because those things come together. There's like hey, here's my SE. Let me know when you're ready to do a deal. That's like, it's different now, right? That people are going to want to touch, feel, and sort of see what that thing looks like going forward. And that's different. Our expertise now is like question-based selling. There's a lot of methodology expertise, which is, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying as we continue to morph into a more product-led world, the level of, the business acumen side, which is, continuing to understand what the business conversations need to look like, and the product side actually becomes way more important, where we've put more emphasis on, I don't know, question-based selling, whatever those things might be. Those things are still there, but we have to actually give them more product expertise so they can make the right recommendations, give away the right things, Ryan, as you described, to maximize usage of the product as part of how we sell.
It sounds cliche and political, but you want to make sales reps part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that's how you have to think about it when they're trying to understand what the value is in the product.
That was both cliche and dead on. Love that.
We can do it. That's my political pose.
Wicked. Okay,
Mike, you want to do a couple more lightning?
Yeah, we got 10 minutes. We'll try and tackle two more. If we can't, that's all good. We can go through that later. But next hot take here. Okay, so in this virtual world, many sellers feel quite unprepared to sell in the virtual world, right? Not having everything at your fingertips. You can't just stand up, walk over to your guy and get the information from the product team that you need like that. You need a lot more resources and so on. So we have a stat here that 7 of 10 reps cite access to stakeholders as a prime challenge. Jenny, what are your thoughts on that? I'll start with you.
Gosh, I mean, I still feel like we're navigating this. So, I mean, I saw this question on there and I thought I could pontificate for a long time, but I don't know that I know the answers on it, frankly. I think that we're going to be facing a virtual buying experience in even in enterprise sales. So think about these big, complicated, $500,000 to $1 million deals being done over the phone and over Zoom. And that's happened. I mean, that last year we were able to close a couple of those or several that were really large deals where we never met the person and we still haven't. And they're having a good customer experience and they're loyal. So I think a couple things that have really helped. One, we made a decision to try to be on video as much as we could with our prospects. And that has helped. Now, the concession we've made is because of Zoom exhaustion. We don't require it in our internal meetings outside of the bigger team settings, so that we can get a little bit of a reprieve, especially on the sales side. Sorry about that. And then, yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, access to stakeholders, we're staring down hospitals that don't want people there. And are mostly in their home environments because they don't want extra business and admin staff there during a pandemic. So I don't know the exact answer to that. But what has surprised me as well, that industry events haven't picked back up in person. We have, when we've had requests for dinners and to meet up more casually, we've had good support and people willing to do that with us. So I find that kind of interesting as a byproduct. I don't have a ton of data on it yet, other than I've been surprised at how many have been willing to can't go into the office, but we'll meet for dinner.
Yeah, well, I feel like everyone is just fiending for that, any kind of face-to-face interaction, right? And I totally agree with, the video first. I think that's pretty, I would say if you're a seller, it's mandatory right now in a virtual world, right? Because it's like, well, we want to know who you are, what you look like, put a face to who you're talking about. But if you're just having a call or a sales call and you're behind your little black screen with your name, how are they going to remember who you are, right? There's not going to be, a face or something, an attribute that's attached to that conversation.
I have a great thing that one rep on our team does, and he's phenomenal at building rapport because he always researches a little bit about the person in their hometown and tries to find something to ask about. He started changing his background, either to the hospital that he's talking to or changing the background to something that from that person's hometown that's really well known. And he's done really well with that. I was really impressed with that idea.
Yeah, it's like the second level of personalization where you did the personalization to get them in the meeting first, and then now you've got the additional personalization to make it even more meaningful. So I love that.
Said that though, Jenny, because I was about to say they will never forget Ryan.
Yeah, exactly.
With this haircut, how could you?
No, not the haircut. Not that. The background. Yeah, I've been thinking, now in my life, I'm a much more serious person than I was before, but I would have done, there's all these really sort of fun, quirky things now that we should start to think about when we're doing video. I had one that was randomly, I thought of, which was, I was on a call, and then at the end, as we were hanging up, you could hear the person on the other call, not talking about me, don't worry, this isn't a humble brag, going, oh my God, they're doing an amazing job. I think that person was actually doing that purposely so that we could hear it. It looked like he was hanging up and going, oh my God, these guys are amazing. I was thinking, God, what a great sales technique. You're like, okay, you guys, thank you. I'm going to close down the Zoom. Oh my God, did you see how amazing those guys were? They can hear you. And it's like, you can't do that live. They're going to know. It's like, what are you going to do? Mumble it on your way out the door? That's a great idea. Anyway, and then I thought with all those cameo things, you just literally have someone show up to the sales call and you figure out who their favorite actor is and that person's on the sales call. I don't know.
I like
I know
that.
that's
Yeah,
not what I
that's
just
cool.
wanted to have fun. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Cool.
I'd say the other thing is allowing people to still feel heard. So after a discovery call, as soon as we're into the process, the first slide we use in any presentation is a what we heard slide. And it is a recap of everything that we talked through, but in their words. And that what we heard slide by itself is its own tactic, because it can be very rote, and it can be like you're using this and you're using this and this is working, versus pain oriented, where it's in their words, their pain. And I have had customers say, can you give me a copy of this? Because I've had a really hard time presenting this internally, and I want to go take it and use it and present it internally. So that element of helping them feel heard is a critical part of being able to sell successfully virtually. I'm going to grab my earpiece if you see me go off video, though.
Ryan, you got any thoughts on that one? Dude?
Yeah. So on regard to access to start with, one thing that we also need to talk about is you don't have the cap and stance of bumping into people at conferences anymore. You don't have the chance of just having a chance encounter with somebody where you bump into them and meet them that way. One of the things that's obviously a touchy subject for a lot of people is data. Like, where do you get your contact data and who you're reaching out to stuff for those things? In 2022, if you're planning, this is a little biased, but if you're planning on trying to increase access, one of the easiest ways to do that is to just add a second data provider. Sales Hacker did a study with Tito Bort last year, where Tito ran numbers cross-referencing using one data provider versus two, and the shoot up of using one was like 53%. When you add a second provider, it shoots up to 80%, which means 8 out of the 10 the people that you find online you might want to do stuff with, you can do that. Another thing I would recommend is your prospects are probably on social. Interact with them. Don't just sell to them. Like, put stuff out there, leave comments, invite them to stuff, make content with them, do little subgroup things together, and you can do some stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that point. I feel like a lot of reps don't utilize social enough.
Oh yeah,
building your brand, building your reputation in order to kind of get those people into a meeting to want to talk to you. So I got a question here from Mark Johnson. We'll end with this guy here because we only have about 2 minutes left. So he's asking if any of the panelists have seen a trend, or even in their own employers, the hiring of very senior sales talent to complement the sales team. What he means by this is anywhere 30 to 40 years experience, not 10 to 25, because those reps and those experienced senior employees have experienced a lot more of the process than the younger ones. Have you seen a trend in that at all, Craig?
I'm not sure. By the way, are you calling on me because the 30 to 40 years experience thing? I'm just kidding.
Not at all.
Sorry, there's no crowd. Ryan, can you give me a laugh for God's sakes? I don't know where that's coming from, actually. Intrigued by the person who I will follow up with whoever brought that up. I have not seen that. I'd love to hear from the rest of the panel. I don't know.
I mean, most of our team is enterprise and talent, but we have a lot of really seasoned, experienced reps on our team. It's probably 75% of our team and the makeup of the team. So I'm a big believer in that. I think they're great reps out there, as long as there's a willingness to help support them on the tech stack side, because it's a little slower go on some of that. So if they can be supported on the tech stack side, they need less support on the sales training side. So there's a give and a take. Whereas, some of the folks, and maybe there are bad habits, but every rep has bad habits. So I enjoyed it. And I feel like they can be very entrepreneurial, and I'm not here to micromanage their day. I'm here to talk with them strategically about their deals. If I ask hard questions about the qualification of those deals, but they're seasoned and savvy. They have their own ideas, and occasionally I have to challenge them to get back into quarterback mode. But I had a great rep who was talking about his account planning on a big account between now and the end of the year, and was struggling with it. The plan wasn't very strong. I just said, but what if you had to close it by the end of the year? What if you had to? What would you do? His account plan is freaking stellar. It's amazing. As soon as he shifted that thinking, he's capable of putting the steps together. He doesn't need me to do that. He needed me as a sales leader to challenge him on how to get there in his thinking. And as soon as he was there, his experience took him all the way through the process. So I'm a huge fan of finding those individuals to plug into the team, and what they can contribute in their experience to the rest of the team is pretty phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Ryan, any last minute comments here?
Yeah, if you're going to hire senior reps, as someone mentioned before, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to sell. That means think of your sales operations process like a UI UX expert, like you're designing an app. How many steps does it take to do anything? If you can get those steps down as close to zero as possible, it's going to be a lot easier for that rep to be successful and take advantage of their experience.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Fantastic, everybody. We are at our time. I know we got through a few of our hot takes, not all of them, but we still got some great content today, and I hope everybody has some valuable takeaways that you can implement right away when planning out your 2022. Again, Craig, Jenny, and Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time today to bless us with your knowledge and our community with such valuable content. And LeadIQ, I'd like to shout out. Thank you so much for sponsoring this webinar. They're fantastic. Go check them out. And if there's any questions that we didn't get to today, please go connect with these three and ask them whatever questions you have. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to answer when they have the opportunity to get back to you. But again, thank you all so much for being here. Super appreciative. And I can't wait to do it again soon.